right on the set. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Dating Diaries with Raquel and Brittany. So, ladies, we left off talking about the hard conversations here, saying what we got to do and everything. And luckily, we were able to convince Raj and Kevin to stay so they can answer more of these questions. Having that difficult conversation. And what happens when the pretty leaves?
When the poo leaves?
I know.
The pretty.
You get the ugly?
I
I don't know.
Oh my God. Here we go. So go ahead, Kevin. Finish off where you left off, man. Tell us, what happens in that difficult conversations.
All right. So I guess you could say when the difficult conversations come, everybody thinks it's kind of sunshine, roses, and everything until what happens when you start thinking about the other gender, when you start thinking outside of your person. And a lot of times we start saying, like, what do you mean by that? It's like when the presentation of temptation and opportunity come along. You know what I mean? A lot of the times when we, go to work, when we go and do things, we start seeing other people where it's more or less, they have
they give your flowers for that one, bro.
Show support.
I know that was crazy.
They have, the looks, the where they have, what looks like to be watered grass. You know what I mean? And
the green.
Yeah, it looks like the grass is green on the other side, but in the same sense, it looks like you know how to water their grass. So it's like, okay, well, their grass is already green as I see it, and I know how to water it. But mine is having a little trouble. The grass I'm already maneuvering is having a little trouble.
Dry.
It's a little dry. Yeah. So like, how do I maneuver having this difficult conversation where now I'm worried about the response? You know what I mean? I've been worried so much about us having green grass, or we having green grass. I'm seeing patches, and you not seeing those patches, but I'm seeing patches, and I'm.
You have to pause and look at your phone during the date.
I'm just saying. My thing here is okay. I'm gonna say shit that you might not like. Okay?
Go right ahead.
But maybe you're creating those patches in your head, and those really patches don't really exist because they only exist in your head.
Ooh, that's
so so that goes into play. Yeah, if that goes into play, that only one person seeing patches, right? And having a difficult conversation comes up, it has to be met with a level of understanding from both parties. Because a lot of the times with someone brings up what their opinion of what their feelings, it may not be factual. Feelings over facts is everything. You know what I mean? Your feelings may be, at the end of the day, I may feel some type of way, but in the factual stance, am I really in a bad spot? You know what I mean? So if it comes down to it in your relationship, if I see patches in the relationship, even though the relationship's not in a bad spot, what am I really seeing? You know what I mean? And if I'm bringing this up, we need to talk about it. You know what I mean? Why aren't we talking about it? Because if I see it and you don't want to talk about it, are you disassociating my feelings at that point? And at that point, once you feel that little bit of inkling that you're getting pushed off to the side of what you feel, it could not, it's just a feeling. You know what I mean? And once you get pushed off to the side of your feelings and not being like recognized for your feelings, then what? Can you have that difficult conversation? It starts to get harder. The longer you wait to have that difficult conversation, the more difficult it becomes.
Okay. But my thing is, let's say you do have that conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just based on your perception of how things are going. Because let's say the other person doesn't see it that way, and they don't have any emotional inclination of anything. This is really coming from your perspective. Mm-hmm. They acknowledge your feelings, but how can they work on something that they don't perceive to be an issue?
That's why it's a conversation.
A conversation to make you feel better?
No, it's more so, it's not necessarily make me feel better, but in the sense of if I see these things and let's say...
But there's things that you're only seeing and you're seeing that's only it's only your perspective. They're not seeing it an issue. They're not seeing that it's a problem, but it's coming from your perspective. So now they have to compromise and say, okay, I see what you're coming from, but I don't think that's not how I'm seeing it. But now we have to compromise because it's your perception.
We don't have to compromise. We have to come to an agreement.
That is compromising.
Well,
though.
I mean, but that's also when it comes to being in a relationship, how we.
Yeah, relationship is compromising.
Yeah. So if we're having a.
So we're gonna compromise for you.
No, but wait a minute.
Because it's not compromising for her if she's not seeing the problem.
Well, I know, but she's not seeing the problem because he's seeing it, and he's trying to express that to her and be like, "Hey, this is how I'm seeing it.
Okay,
help me get to where you're at then."
So okay, so you can make someone agree to something they don't agree.
I didn't say agree. I never said agree.
No, you said compromise, but they have to compromise based on your emotions, based on your perception, based on how you're feeling, because they're not seeing that.
But if you wait, pause. Wait.
What's the difference between that and when a woman feels the same way and the man doesn't see it?
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Relationships all about compromising based on the perspective of the other person.
So if something that makes you feel that way, that obviously means there's actions that's going along with it that's making that person feel that way. Now, if I'm saying I see patches, and I'm not going to say I see patches based on what I'm seeing, I'm seeing this based off actions. So there's something that's going along the day that's having me see this. Now, I'm not saying that you have to compromise, because if you don't compromise, then that means we're not together. That means we need to break apart. You know what I mean? If we're willing to compromise, that means that we're willing to stay as one. But so if I'm seeing a problem, right, and I'm saying based off of these, this is why the conversation has to be, well, you're supposed to, and not saying you, but what I'm expecting and what I'm trying to get through is, why am I seeing these problems? If you don't see it, then okay, what are my actions? What are the things? Where are the accountability for myself? You know what I mean? On, hey, this is what I've been through. Like, because it could just be a trauma that I'm going through. It can
be. That's right? What I'm saying. Like, it could be trauma induced.
We don't find that out without having a conversation.
So because your trauma is what's inducing that other person has to compromise.
Don't they have to live with me?
Yeah, they gotta compromise.
Don't they have to be with me? You know what I mean? So
but
if
that's
an
option
the case,
that they have to be willing to take. But like, maybe perhaps it's okay. Here's my thing.
You walked head first into the point.
Huh?
You walked head first.
I think he's saying that you've already acknowledged that sometimes a man is going to have to compromise in the relationship, and sometimes the woman is going to have to compromise in the relationship.
But if it's trauma induced, that
it doesn't matter.
Not the
do you care?
It doesn't matter.
Are you saying that you care?
That's
for
the
that
car
person?
you bought, though. That's the car you bought. You knew that man had trauma when you met him. But even deeper than that.
So because I bought that car, that other person, it's not even
absolutely.
A car.
You bought the refrigerator knowing it was dented, so they gave you $200 off.
There we go.
And then you got a $4,000.
Okay, no,
it doesn't matter about the warranty. It ultimately comes down to your
where
work.
is the accountability from that person to fix their own trauma? Why does it relate to the other partner to have to compromise because it's a trauma induced?
You compromise because their trauma might be induced, but you want to feel safe in your relationship.
Maybe they were never supposed to get with that person because
that trauma
they weren't
was
ready.
That trauma was part of the car you bought. That was part of it.
You bought the fridge with a dad, man.
You bought that, but I'm gonna talk about a deeper thing.
Discount.
One of the deepest things ever is perception is everything. You can sit in a room with someone and someone had the best time of their life, another person was the most offended time of their life. So that perception is everything. So it's like one person can think this relationship is going amazing, and another person can think this relationship isn't. But I think the deepest thing when you date anyone, especially after that happy face time, that smiley face time when everything's cute and pretty, you got to deal with the problems. Everyone has problems.
But I won't take accountability for their trauma perception.
It's not taking accountability for their trauma. Look.
It is because you're asking that person to compromise for something that you might need to work on beside having that person to compromise.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so let's put it this way. If you're saying that you want to be with that person, you want to make sure they feel comfortable, they feel safe, right? And in that relationship, we'll put it to something that's super simple, right? You like going to bed in pajamas. This person likes going to bed naked. You don't like someone being naked because of situations that happened before this person. This is a difficult conversation that you to have with this person. However, if this person accepts you, they'll put on pajamas to
No,
make
I
sure
wouldn't want that for them because
It-
if they want to be naked and
It's-
it's an issue for me, then that tells me I need to go to therapy to fix this because
But if
you
it's-
shouldn't have to put clothes
Okay.
for me.
okay, that's
I
great.
should have to work through
That's
this.
great that you're
But the
willing to
beauty
do
of the
that,
relationship is
but
that
the
they're
re-
willing to do it for you.
Exactly.
Because
They
How
understood.
understood.
but how toxic is that though?
That's not toxic.
It is
when-
toxic because you're expecting that other person to change because of your trauma.
What's toxic is saying
I'm
that.
telling you, you need to put on clothes because I have a trauma.
you're not telling.
No, the
anyone-
love part is saying, "Baby, I'm willing to
but
do
that's
it."
not that's not healthy
You're not.
love.
You're not
I
telling
disagree.
someone. You're not telling someone to put on
because
clothes.
you disagree doesn't
Look.
make it that it's
Look,
correct. Though.
you're not
Oh,
telling. You're not
shots
telling.
fired.
You're not telling someone to put on the clothes. You're telling someone the feelings that you get when they don't have clothes on.
Okay.
And what they do as an action is what's supposed to be the compromise for you. If they know
So because
that
they don't
being-
put on clothes, then that means they don't love me.
no.
No,
So what does
they-
that
they-
mean?
They still. That means they
That
stand in
means
their
that
ground,
they're-
and
they're
you need to
standing
heal
their
your
ground.
trauma.
Exactly. You
But
need to heal your
but
there
trauma.
are
You
some
would
people
have-
who will put the pajamas on to make
you
you, feel
would have
comfortable.
never
and they cool with
known
it.
what they would be able to do if you don't have the conversation.
So I hear what you're saying. It's important to have the conversation, and I agree with that. But what they do based on that conversation, I don't think they should change because you have a trauma that is
And that
that is causing whatever the perspective that is.
Can I ask a deeper question? I think everything about relationship is change. Like when you decide to be in a relationship with another human, you have to change. And that goes for both parties involved, no matter who has trauma. I think if you don't want to change, then you'll never have a successful relationship there. Two, that's the only thing you're about. The day you meet this new person, your life changed forever.
I think
So if
So
we're not-
should you date after you healed your trauma, or should you date while you're dealing with
Well,
your
it
trauma?
depends on the person.
Trauma's never healed. It's
No,
it's a
it
day
is
by day
healed.
thing.
You can't
no.
heal.
You're always healing, but you're never healed. What I mean by that,
Oh.
you can say right now, you can go to therapy for 5-10 years, and if you
But
ever,
you're not really truly putting the effort because you can't heal from trauma.
I think
if you was to
can't.
bring up
I
a trauma
think to say-
situation that you had 10 years ago, if it was really trauma, you had some feelings on it no matter what.
100%.
happened. You would probably
I
have to
think
go
you're
back
forever
to
healing. As
you-
humans, that's all you can do is forever heal.
You would have to go back
It's
to
ongoing
that.
I agree. Remember that story I told you guys about when I lost the baby and all that? I still haven't healed from all that,
Because
but I am
you
healed.
haven't actually put the effort to heal, though.
I have for the last 20 some odd years. I have,
Right,
and
okay,
You
what have
can't
you
heal
done?
off of certain things. It's like this thing's called grieving. When you lose a person that's like close to you, there's things that you can't heal from. So the same thing with relationships. Certain things that happen in life, you may not be able to heal from. But the only way to be in a healing process to move forward, and I think we should all take a look at this, and we all say change, but the word should never be change. It should be growth. You don't have to change who you are. You have to grow to be a better person today than you were yesterday. And sometimes people
Church.
think that as they have to change their ways. No, you have to cut out the distractions and be who you're supposed to be,
So
rather
where
than allowing
is
yourself
your
to go
growth when
away.
you're asking someone to put on clothes because there is some trauma involved?
You're
Where's
saying
your growth?
So the first off, you're acknowledging that there's a trauma in the first place.
Okay.
A lot of people don't acknowledge it. You acknowledge that there was a trauma. Secondly, you said, hey, this is what are the actions. So the conversation should be not necessarily what it should be, but when you have that conversation and say, hey, you know, I have a trauma with you wearing these clothes, not wearing clothes, or things like that. If someone is not wearing and not wearing the clothes, right, and what they would do is intentionally, they'll say, okay, well, let's start with this. I don't like wearing clothes. However, I'm okay with wearing like just like a t-shirt and some underwear. Let's start with that. Let's start with underwear only. If I put on underwear, how do you feel if I put on underwear? Let's work together. Now, you doing your own work as far as going to therapy, you doing your own work as far as like going to like a pastor or whoever, that's on you. We can discuss that too, but we'll discuss what you're doing. But as far as me and you as a whole, we have to figure out what I can do to help you. Instead of sitting there saying, well, I can't do it or I can't do it, then there may be a trauma with them wearing clothes. So now that brings up another issue that you both are compromising on. What if it brings up a lot of different things that happens, you know? So when it comes to compromise, when it comes to things that make a difference, when it comes to having a deep conversation, it's you have to have that conversation in the first place, and it brings
I
up the
agree.
deeper
I think
things.
you should have a conversation, but the outcome. I think is what I'm disagreeing is that the outcome of what that conversation should bring. I guess is what I'm saying, but I mean,
So let
I
me
hear what you're saying.
let me say something here really quick. So, Brittany, I do think I understand where you're coming from, and I get it. You're saying that, okay, when we go into a relationship, we need to be healed, and we're not supposed to be bringing baggage into our next relationship. That is the ideal.
Yes.
But the reality is that typically that doesn't happen. You know, everybody, even though we take our time to heal, we take our time, to do good for ourselves. When we unexpectedly, find someone that we really are into, stuff is going to happen, and things are going to trigger us, and things are going to not be perfect, and we got to be ready for that. I think that I'm healed. The last time that I was in a relationship was 2 years ago, and I feel that I'm ready to be going into another relationship. But I know that when I do, I know there's going to be things that he's going to say that is going to bring back some trauma, and I'm hoping that he will be wise enough to understand that, you know what, don't take it personal. This is something that just came out because it reminded me of something, and I'm hoping that he would understand that, okay, you know what, she just needs to be hugged right now, or maybe she just needs to be heard, or let her scream if she wants to, and I think honestly that's part of the healing process too, being in a relationship where you can show that part of you, and your man is okay with it. He won't judge you for it. He won't he won't say, okay, you know what, maybe this person is not ready. He'll be like, you know what, she had an episode, it's okay, let's move forward. I still love her. I want the good and the bad, because this is who she is.
And sometimes that's a little hard to reciprocate as a male. Like, as a male, when there's certain things, well, as a person in general, but let me just speak on my experience when doing that, when speaking on how she was saying, right? If you're having an episode, if you're having a lot of things when it comes to relationship, a tone is real taken into effect, right? And so that's something that a lot of times with PTSD, when it comes to relationships, is at the beginning of it, we don't really put in account of how our tone is, especially when we get passionate. Let alone get angry. Let alone get anything other than happiness. If we get passionate about a subject, right? My passion could trigger you into something else where you had a different experience, and you say, hey, don't talk to me like that. It ain't the topic that we talking about. It's the way I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? But at that point in time, ain't that another way of compromise for the relationship? You know what I mean? Like, okay, now I got to watch my tone. I got to make sure that, I'm not too passionate, because you may not be used to my passion. You know what I mean? But I may not be used to yours. So, like, the best thing of, like, nonchalantness. Sometimes when people shut down when you get passionate because they think you're angry. So, it's just a lot of things when it comes to that. It's like, yeah, it's...
I think it go back to what we were all talking about as being healed and being, like, healing. Like you were saying, like, it's a difference between knowing your partner needs a hug or when your partner needs to scream and being left alone. Like, that's all important. And I think it's forever journey. When you start a new journey with someone, it's so different. Like you said, your life literally changed. You usually go to work, go home. You have this schedule. When you meet this new person, it's flipped upside down. And you have to understand, now you're dealing with another soul on the other side of this thing. And how do you deal with this? Like, let's get over all the bullshit of, like, what you buying and what you like, and it's cute and it's funny and it's fun. But when you flip this upside down, your life has changed forever from this one human you met. And it's literally changes everything you'll ever do. And like you said, I think it was deep when she just said, like, you got to know when your partner need a hug and when she needs to be left alone, or what's next after the intimate stuff.
The biggest one is how to
Like,
do
you
that.
should-
That's
like,
it. After
It's
like
not
8
about
years.
knowing. Like, you shouldn't know. Like, I think it should be communicated.
No,
That-
I think what's
that's the
understood
conversation.
does not need to be explained.
I
Preach.
disagree.
It's understood.
I disagree.
You're gonna
because,
learn your
no.
partner. You're gonna learn their little cues. You're gonna learn what they need because you want to cater to them, and that's
You
coming
should
from a
not
deep
be-
place of love.
No, you should not be a mind reader. I'm sorry. That's
Okay,
just not
now,
what
wait,
No, you should. If someone needs a hug, you should tell someone, "I need you to give me."
Okay,
If I
It's
that's
need
not
the-
about being a
space,
mind reader.
no.
It's about picking up on their cues because you've been in their presence so much. You
But
know when
what
they're
if-
down.
What if you? What
You
if
know
you can't
what
pick
they
up
need to
cues?
comot them.
No.
Well,
What if
okay.
If you
you
can't pick up cues, then that's a
Th-
No,
Wait,
it's
wait,
called,
hold on.
that's a
what
Hold
if-
on.
psychiatrist in a
Hold
few
on.
sessions. I
Wait.
don't know.
I'm
Because
sorry,
there's so
but
much
you
there, so
shouldn't
much
be-
there.
You should not
Wait,
have to
hold
be
on.
a mind reader. I'm not gonna sit here and try to read their cues.
Okay.
If you need a hug, tell me. If
That-
you need me to tell you that you're great and you need some affirmation and confirmation, whatever, tell me. I
I
will
think-
give it to you.
I
But
got
I
Okay,
should
so
not
I
have
think-
to sit here and read.
I'm ready to raise my
I should
hand.
not have to
Okay.
read. I'm not
So-
gonna
Raise
read
your
you.
hand.
So I
I'm not
got
gonna
you.
read your
Raise my
cues.
hand.
I'm
Okay.
not.
I'm
So
telling
the way-
you, what's understood does not need to be explained, but I understand
I-
you disagree.
So I
I
get what you're
disagree.
saying as far as what what's understood doesn't need to be said, but at the same time I get what you're saying too, because at the same time when you're talking about that part, that's a years of building of a relationship thing. At the beginning, yeah, you probably shouldn't have to say anything because that's all you're paying attention to is their cues. After you get comfortable with someone, then you've gotten like years into this with someone, people don't necessarily change, but they grow every 7 years. There is something that you don't give a fuck about 7 years down the road where you used to go hard for. You can say that
Can I
2
keep?
months of
Can
that,
I?
you
Can
know
I?
what I mean?
Can I keep it a bean? Like what I mean by this is when someone says my partner has to express everything verbally, I disagree on one level. Society has taught you how to live unverbally every day of your life. What I mean by that is you know when a red light is a red light. Ain't nobody talking to you say this is a red light. You can see this unverbally and knowing. If you can't watch your partner to know how to learn them, I'm not saying you got to be perfect. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I'm not saying you won't make mistakes. But if you're not watching your partner closest to anything you're doing in this life, it's already a loss. You should know when your partner is upset, angry, happy, sad, mad, and you're gonna miss. But you should have a good intelligence to say,
Amen.
my partner understands. She pissed off right fucking now. Now, this is what I'm going to do. And maybe you won't be right every time. But I would say after a few years, you should know her like the back of your hand. Because you know how to go to work on time. You know how to leave work on time. You know how to, like, what happens if you get fired? But you have to watch your partner like you watch society. And I think we're losing if we don't feel like this is the closest thing you'll ever do is find God in your partner. The rest going to fall out in place.
Understood.
Wait, what? What about
Understood.
Is it Sunday today? Is
I'm
today Sunday?
I'm so-
Amen.
that? Okay.
I-
Okay. Well, okay.
No.
To
Brittany
piggyback,
is
right?
saying,
I'm just saying, like,
Verbal
I hear
communication.
What you're saying,
Okay.
But if you honestly, I don't think people are gonna. You're not gonna read the messages all the time, right? And you shouldn't
that's
have
okay.
to. Yes.
And that's okay.
Someone should tell you what they need. Like it should be communicated. You don't have to sit there and try to read the nonverbal.
The part where
cues.
that he's making and trying to, and I get it. The part where I get it, and it's like, yes, you should read that. If it's also depending on that other part allowing you in. You know what I mean? If I'm making that, if I see that red flag and I make that communication like, hey, this is something that I'm going through. Like, hey, this is something I see. This is a red flag that I'm seeing from you. Do you need a hug? You know what I'm saying? It's more than likely the actions that happen beforehand that makes this person curious to where, like, hey, my normal reaction on how to make this better is not normal. I don't know. There's a disconnect, right? Mm-hmm. So it's also on that other partner of accepting, hey, he may not know or she may not know. So that is a verbal communication that you should have. But the more that you have those is the more that where it says, yes, on his point, the more that you have, hey, do you need a hug? More so says, why don't you know? You know what I mean? If I'm having a point where I'm saying, hey, do you need a hug? That means that we need to have what I said at the first time, a conversation. There's a deep conversation that we need to have.
I think that's when what I'm trying to say here is that's when it's just not pretty anymore. That's when I can say I can look at my woman and try to understand what she needs. I probably will miss. Like, I'm not saying we perfect. And like you said, verbal is important. But it should be a point in time to say, I can look at this woman and understand what's next. Because it is the closest thing we get. You share a bed with this woman, and that's sacred. And I think that's the important thing. It can't be funny. It can't be interesting. It has to be something different.
Well, on that note, guys, we are going to have to end the show. We'll continue this with the next session, and we will see where we end up this. Hopefully, we won't end up having a fight or do anything. So on behalf of Dating Diaries, Raquel and Brittany, thank you for listening in, and have a wonderful night, people.
Thank you.